I'm thinking that we are live right now because YouTube tells me that I'm live. Thank you, YouTube, for being so explicitly clear without fail. Means there are never any hiccups on my show. Welcome, everyone, to Crypto Beat YouTube. I am absolutely delighted today to have the Crypto Lark joining me on the show. We are talking about all the latest news of the past week and what you need to know for the week going forward. Crypto Lark, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. It's been a while since we had a chat, and there's obviously always a lot happening in the crypto space.
Absolutely. And so today I wanted to really focus on this yield farming craze that's going on. We've got shrimp token and taco and yam and spaghetti money. And I don't know, there's probably bread and cabbage and I don't know, there's probably...
One's literally been named meme coin.
Meme coin. I'm sure that Kieran's working on one as we speak as well. So we're going to dive into that. We're also going to talk about the USPS plan to have blockchain voting. USPS has been in the news a lot. There's all this talk of like defunding and all this. And, you know, is this just a bid for them to stay relevant? Do we need postal services to be involved if it's blockchain voting at all? So we'll dive into that as well and give you the rundown and everything that you need to know about that. Before we get started, if you do have questions, feel free if you wanted to ask me the questions on my Cointree page. It's cointr.ee/Naomi Brockwell. Ask a question, we will answer it on the show. And feel free to leave a comment for Crypto Lark on my page as well if you would like, and I will send him anything that you send my way. And there was another thing. Also, I'm starting a newsletter. So after my shows, I will send out just like a crypto in under 5 minutes newsletter to all of you. If you wanted to sign up, you can head to Naomi Brockwell/CryptoBeat and get that there. So let's dive into it. Let's not dive into it because the Crypto Lark is gone. I've lost my guest. What am I gonna do?
Sorry.
Quick, sing a song. Oh, he's back. All right, guys. You don't need to hear me sing today. We have it all under control. Crypto Lark, let's dive into the USPS. So essentially what happened was they came out and they patented a while ago, apparently, this idea for this postal service / blockchain voting system. And then it was released, I think it was Friday, Forbes announced that this was made public. And so now we all learned about this patent. Some are saying that, well, this is just them patenting things because they want to make money. Let's dive into what we know about this and whether we think it may actually help some of the issues we have with voting. Do you want to just give us an overview of what's happening there?
Yeah, I mean, the whole voting on the blockchain thing, it's a pretty crazy idea, right? I think that a lot of people have been talking about it for a very long time. And I think there's a lot of excitement around the idea of elections. So do we want to see people voting on the blockchain? It's going to be transparent and all this stuff. But obviously, there's an incredible amount of issues to have to deal with to even come to that, let alone dealing with the political issues of it. The technical side, you have to deal with the fact that how are you going to make that encrypted so that everyone's vote is able to be counted and verified, but you're not exposing anyone's data who voted for who, right? So you're maintaining the anonymity of the vote. You also have to deal with the fact that most blockchains will not be able to deal with, for example, 100 million Americans showing up and voting on one day. They would crash, right? Or slow down to the point of near unusability. So that then comes a question of, well, are we looking at layer 2 solutions? Those are less secure. Are we looking at private blockchains? Well, what's the point in having a private blockchain? It's just a database at that point, basically, with some extra bells and whistles. So really what you want to have is a public blockchain that can handle that kind of demand. You know, it's easier for a city or a smaller country. When we start talking about the bigger countries, you know, whether it be the United States or India or somewhere like that, you need a really, really robust system to be able to do that. Now, that's one part of the issue. But the second part of the issue is, of course, the political issue when it comes to voting is that what about access, right? If we're going to move the elections to the blockchain, well, they're going to be booths where people need to go and vote still. And, you know, can we trust things are actually being recorded in those booths the way that they're supposed to be recorded? Who's verifying that, especially if it's a private network? There's no way to verify that. It's just kind of a trust us model, which is largely what elections are already. It's a trust us model. You have to trust the people counting a piece of paper actually saying what they're saying and all this stuff. And
yeah, that's a big gamble that we're all taking by doing that. No, there's a lot to take into account. I think that it's helpful when we're talking about this to also look at what's been done in the past, because there are groups that are trying to solve this, and devil's in the details, obviously. But you've got cases like Zcoin. This was one of the first projects that tried to do blockchain voting, and this was in Thailand, and it was really interesting because it seemed to be somewhat successful there. They passed the voter identification and encrypted that separately, and then had the results and another bit, and it all seemed to come together and work pretty seamlessly. But again, as you said, like there's access, like some people use this app to do it. Some people had like in-person booths and all of that. And just if we're looking at American politics and voter fraud and all of that, like it's interesting. When I was reading up about all of this, these electronic voting booths that we have in the United States, apparently there was some like DEF CON where they bought a bunch of machines for people to hack. And they were like, we're going to have all these voting machines and you guys try and hack into these and see what you can do. And they got lots of different companies, they sourced material from, but notably absent were like the three main companies that basically run electronic voting systems for US elections. and they didn't want anyone scrutinizing these black boxes. They wanted no transparency. They didn't want people to try and hack into this. And it does make you question like how secure is voting currently. Like it's, this opaque system, constant rumors and allegations of fraud. And then USPS comes in and says, well, we're going to solve this. So it's interesting what they propose. Like on the one hand, I think it's kind of them cry for help. Like they're trying to remain relevant in this day and age of digital communications, right? And I feel like if we're dealing with an era where we have email and we all basically have devices, and there doesn't seem to be that need for physical mail anymore. But their system, it's interesting because that's on the one hand, but on the other hand, they're saying they want to basically mail out QR codes to every address. And this would be a way to bypass fraud because it's harder to capture everyone's physical mail in the world than it is to, maybe capture an electronic system or something else, or to perhaps steal a bunch of digital identity cards to prove. But there's like, what do you think about their proposal and some of the ideas? Like, I think it's a two-edged sword. It's kind of interesting, but also kind of dumb. But I'd love your thoughts.
Well, it sounds like one of those situations where you have an old school system trying to adapt to a new school system and really not understanding how it all works, right? I mean, it is tricky though, because if you want people to just go and log into a website, I mean, I think the US government, most governments, but I think the US government has quite spectacularly sometimes launched websites that have crashed immediately because they just have no idea how to launch even a website, right?
And spent a tremendous amount of money in the process.
That's it. We spent $50 million on this website. It can handle 5 people at a time.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, there's that problem. We also have to look at the, obviously, blockchain voting is not going to replace in-booth voting or mail-in voting anytime in the near future. But even in that more distant future, when it may get to the point where it does, you still have to deal with issues around access, for example. This is one of the reasons why moving towards a cashless society, of course, is very problematic, even for a country like the United States. I was reading an article, something like, I can't remember what the exact number was, but approximately 20% of the US population is unbanked or underbanked. Wow. Because they live in communities where there are no banks, right? Or they live in the rural areas where it's not easy to get access to these things, or they're just old and they don't do it and they're not into computers and stuff like this. So they don't have an online bank account. And so you then equate that into people who would be able to use online voting, even if it's an incredibly simple process for more tech savvy people like us. I imagine my dad playing around with something like that, and I have to install apps on his app store whenever I go to see him every couple of years. And it's just like, okay, Dad, here's how to install Skype. Here's how to use it. They call me sometime.
Yeah, I know. I've been FaceTiming a lot with my grandma, and she's 95. And sometimes she'll be like, wait, I can't hear you anymore. I'm like, man, your finger's on the volume button. No, there's no button here. I'm like, oh, there's a little bump on the side. You've got to press the button. You turn the volume back. And it's like, the idea that these people might be able to use electronic voting system based on a blockchain, it would have to be so many orders of magnitude better than user interfaces we have in the crypto space right now, like we do.
They will be. They will be. It'll probably be face identification. Just go in, scan your face, press some, big pop-up things on the screen. Won't even have to be able to read to be able to vote, which is also, you can be providing more access for people.
Yeah. So back to the USPS thing, and I just want to mention David Knight here. Thank you. Sent me a super chat. I really, really appreciate your support. That means a lot to me. Yeah, it means a lot. So USPS, they kind of talk in broad strokes in what I've read about their patent. They're just saying, well, we're going to combine these QR codes that people will scan, and then they can go online or use an app and then cast their vote. It's immediately put in the blockchain, and it's all going to be secured by existing on thousands of computers all around the world. And I want to know more about that, because there's a lot of ways that could go wrong and be completely ineffectual. As you said, there's a difference between a private blockchain and a public blockchain, and by that we don't mean like privacy coins. We mean, are these thousands of computers that the USPS controls themselves? In which case, what is the point in having a blockchain? And so there doesn't seem to be any information to grab onto, and that's why people, I think, are suspecting that this is just this patent scheme where they just want to create these patents and perhaps make money if people want to use these ideas, or perhaps make it so that other people can't ever use these ideas. So I don't know. The USPS, when we're talking politically, and maybe I'll go a little political now, I see no reason why taxpayers need to be propping up USPS. We have all these private systems with faster, better service, and yet all this taxpayer money is apparently being pumped into the USPS because it loses millions of dollars a day, right? The USPS loses millions of dollars a day, and they're saying that they're going to be at the forefront of technology, on the cutting edge of this thing, and implement this blockchain system. I find this hard to believe. I don't see them actually going through with this and creating this system. It just seems like this bluff, and they just want to create this patent. But I don't know.
It's a struggle for a lot of companies to maintain relevance in the technological era. It's not just the USPS, it's a whole multitude of other companies. I mean, look what happened to Blockbuster. They weren't able to update their business model when in the era of the internet, right? And I think this is going to happen to a lot of companies. And so maybe it is on some level an attempt to stay relevant, but there's a whole other conversation to be had about, government-run services like a postal service, when the majority of mail that most people receive is just garbage, right? There's not necessarily a point to be receiving that. If we're talking about receiving packages, well, you have, private companies which can do that, right? So yeah, it brings in a question but you flip that around and then you talk about access, right? So, I mean, those private companies are not going to open up some kind of an office in a tiny town, whereas the government service will, because they provide access, not profit models, right? So there's you can cut it both ways, but I think that any of these companies that don't kind of adapt to the times are going to be left behind. And actually, if you talk about the USPS, I think they're already behind the times, because what have we seen in other countries? Australia, you can now go to your post office and buy Bitcoin. You can do it in Croatia. You can do it in Austria. And I think a couple other countries as well. Post shops are now selling Bitcoin. So if they're looking for new revenue models, sell Bitcoin, guys.
I love that. I love the way that you bring that back in. It's like they're losing money. Exactly. Bitcoin fixes this.
Yeah, Bitcoin does fix this.
So I wanted to just give an example of some other places that are trying this. Russia has some news out. They're experimenting with blockchain voting in September. They had some hiccups last year. So last year they created the system, they posted it public, they let people scrutinize it on GitHub and said, we'll provide a bounty if you can find any bugs. And someone did, like a giant bug, basically found that the encryption that they're using is crazy weak. And all the cryptographers who were looking at this were like, who on earth designed this? Either they don't know what they're doing, or they're trying to, save on resources, or they weren't quite sure what's going on there. But this guy found this big bug. So like your encryption, I can basically, with a standard machine and resources that are available for free, crack all of this encryption on my home computer. So then they scrapped that. They got this new plan that they're now launching in September. So I'd be interested to see what's going on there. Have you looked into what they're trying out?
Well, I think that what they're launching now is, I don't know what happened last year. I wasn't following that situation particularly closely, but I know that they are this time anyway. I don't know if they were previously, but I know they are this time working with Waves, which is, of course, the Russia's premier native blockchain company. So they're working with Waves, particularly their enterprise solution services. So I would assume that this one's going to probably have a much better chance of not being totally a Bondoogle mess crazy thing. So hopefully, because obviously Waves, they know what they're doing. They've been building a powerful blockchain for years now. And so they do have that team and that money. Actually, funny about Waves, it's so many ICOs went through the ICO phase. They raised all this money, right? And then they spent it all on God knows what private yachts and parties and flying first class to conferences.
They invested it all in YAM token.
Yeah, that's right. They threw it all in the YAM. How long till central bank starts, yield farming YAM? Anyway, but the guys at Waves, actually, they raised a lot of Bitcoin before Bitcoin's price went up dramatically. And I'm pretty sure they still have one of the largest war chests of any ICO. So I mean, I bring that up because they have the money to hire the developers to make things happen, and they're making a lot of things happen with a lot of the different stuff that they've been releasing. And so when it comes to being able to do something at this kind of a higher level, I would assume that there's a pretty good chance of success considering the amount of success they've already had. So we'll see. We'll see.
Some other places that have experimented, we've got in Zug, which is kind of known as this area within Switzerland that's super crypto friendly. People say Switzerland's really crypto friendly. It's not, actually. It's just Zug, because they have this awesome mayor who's very crypto friendly. So everyone goes there, and they tried it out. It's called Crypto Valley, they call it. But they tried out this blockchain based e-vote last summer. And so that was interesting. It seemed to go pretty well. Then you've got, like, in Moscow, I mentioned the big vulnerability that we had there. West Virginia, this was an interesting case where you had this trial period where they tried to get military personnel who were deployed overseas, like, access to voting. And so they're testing out this blockchain system. There was this mobile blockchain app developed by a company called Shoutouts. And then it all seemed to be, like, going well. There were, like, nearly 150 users that used this app during the midterm elections last year. Then following the election, it was revealed that someone had attempted to gain unauthorized access to the system, but no votes were viewed, altered, or impacted. But the Senator Ron Wyden then immediately pulled the app and said, that we can't use it, and they shut everything down there, which seems crazy. And Shoutouts apparently said that no one ever even reached out to them, and they said they're happy to have an audit, like whatever audit they want. So that was, like, an interesting, like, kind of knee-jerk, like, shut it all down, let's not talk about it.
I think this is pretty typical what you see from the political class, because a lot of the political class are quite out of touch with technology. And so seeing someone try to access it, I mean, look, we see that it's literally all some people do with their entire lives is try to break into stuff and steal stuff and corrupt data and steal and sell data. And they try everything. Yeah. Every single email address has probably been tried to have been hacked at some point. Every Facebook account, everything, every bank account's been tried to be hacked into. And this is what they do all day long. They run bots, and they have giant teams of people dedicated to doing this because they're successful enough that it makes monetary sense for them to do this. So it's not about if somebody tries to hack into the system. It's about, well, if that happened, was the system successful in rebuffing that attack? What actually happened here? And actually kind of investigating the situation and building on top of that. So this is another one of those problems. You have these old senators and old congressmen that they just they don't get it. They don't get technology. They probably barely can use their smartphones. So, and then these guys make decisions on the technological future of processes. So it doesn't make any sense.
Indeed, it does not. I just want to give a shout out to Jason. You are amazing. I love you. I just got a CoinTree message. It says, "Hi, Nimi. Thank you for bringing back the live shows. I'm really enjoying these live shows. It lets me interact with people. It's really fun just to hang out, bring people on. So I'm really glad that you're enjoying it. So you guys should all go check out Jason's channel. He's, of course, better known on the interwebs as Dragon Wolf Tech, and he has a channel called Crypto Insights Journal. Head over there and check out his stuff. But Jason, I really appreciate your support. Thanks so much for the CoinTree message. So let's move on. Let's take that as a segue into our next topic. because I want to talk about YAM and DeFi and yield farming and this craze that, like if I look on my Twitter right now, it's just covered with people with those like $ hashtags saying like, shrimp and like there's just like every food you can imagine. And when YAM first came out, it was everywhere in my feed. And I was thinking, oh, what's YAM? I must have missed all that, that was going on, because that seemed to come out of nowhere. And then I realized, no, it did come out of nowhere. It was like released on August 12th, and by August 14th it had failed. By August 13th, it was raising hundreds of millions of dollars. So I'm like how does this buzz get created and just right through? So like we should give people just a little bit of a background into what yield farming is. So I did an interview with the CEO of Compound this week, because I'm like, I got to understand this stuff. I want to dig in. And Compound was kind of the first company that really dove into this and popularized it. But now you've got like kind of this meme era of all these coins that are doing like kind of I don't know, but Compound sounds interesting because it's basically like putting your crypto to work. The same way that I'd put money in my bank account and earn interest on it, I see Compound as the same way. I can put my crypto in there and I earn interest. Yield farming is where you use the tokens that you get as like proxies for the money that you've put in, which some people do, like Compound does, but places like Maker don't. But you get like, I feel like people are going to get very confused. So let me try and break it down a little better. When you put money into Compound, let's say I put in 500 ETH, I would then get back a thing called a C token. So I would get a C ETH back, which basically is a representation, and I can use that to cash in, get my ETH later. But what happens now is I can use my C ETH for different things in the DeFi world. So that's what people are doing right now. They have these crazy schemes where they're locking in money, they're getting tokens on all these different platforms, they're using it to buy other tokens so they can get loans, so then they can put it there. The aim is basically to find a way to make money through this complex scheme. While I view things like Compound as more like just earning interest, this whole yield farming of these intricate schemes in these meme tokens, for me, it seems like very complex gambling. But Lark, I would love your perspective on this and an overview of what you've discovered about all this.
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolutely crazy situation. I think an easy way to describe it is like putting money into a high interest bank account and getting like air points as a reward for doing that. So you don't just get money, but you also get the air points too. And then if you want, you can take those air points and get more air points on another platform with them. So it's a complex issue, and a lot of people are incredibly over leveraged on yield farming because there's so much crossover between different tokens and different systems and all this stuff. But I think what it really comes down to is it's just been an absolute craze of money making, because people are making money, and that's why the risk taking is so high. Compound obviously was one of the ones to really kick this whole thing off, but what we've seen is people willing to chase those incredible yields, and that's why YAM became so popular. I think they were offering like, I don't know, like 10,000% annual yield on something. So of course these guys come in and chase this, in spite of the fact that this was launched by a relatively unknown developer team who just basically copied a bunch of open source code from a bunch of projects that were, some of them already experimental, things like Ampleforth.
Hurry up and take my money.
That's it. And so they
that doesn't convince you.
So they just piled all this money into there, and there was no code audit, right? And it's an incredibly it's gambling. People are gambling hard right now, and it's really, there's going to be a catastrophic failure. And this is the thing, YAM wasn't even that catastrophic of a failure,
right?
Because everybody didn't lose their money. They were able to withdraw their money. Right. So even though the platform itself crashed within 48 hours because of, unsurprisingly, bugs in the code, because it was unaudited and nobody had checked it, and they just mishmashed about it. It was a Frankenstein. YAM was a Frankenstein, right? They took all these different bits and pieces from other DeFi platforms, mishmashed them all together, and that was YAM essentially. People then looked for 30, so it's 48 hours for YAM to crash. 24 hours later, people looked and said, well, that was really popular. I'm just going to copy all that code and launch my own platform, and a pasta, shrimp, or whatever kind of stuff this is, and people will come and bring money in. This is the craziness right now of being able to copy, obviously open source code and just redeploy it. We've seen that with yEarn Finance. So they launched, obviously very, very popular. Within 24 hours of their launch, we had already had at least half a dozen literal direct copies pop up and being run by other teams. And so if you're yield farming, keep it to the safe plays, use Balancer, use Compound, someone like that, yEarn, one of these more respected platforms. There's still risks there. I think that's the thing that really needs to be underlined. There's still risks with these platforms. We have seen so many exploits in the DeFi space, and we've seen exploits of companies that have been audited. Some of them have undergone multiple audits. They've still missed the bugs. And so when you then take it to the level of what we're seeing right now with people just throwing any money, literally hundreds of millions of dollars at the new hot thing. 24 hours ago, they were mining something different, or farming something different. Today, they're farming something different. It's incredibly dangerous because no one's looking at the code. No one's auditing the code. No one's thinking about what the code risks are. Where's the admin keys? Do they have access to, potentially, have they, the developers, written exploits into the code that will allow them to then steal your funds in 48 hours once they've got $200 or $300 million in crypto sitting on the platform? People aren't asking these questions, right? And it's going to happen. It's a ticking time bomb. How long until we see a massive exit scam that literally takes hundreds of millions of dollars from people? Because these teams of scammers, they're relentless. They're out there scheming on something like this right now, and they're not asking questions when they throw their money into this stuff. They just see it, they throw money in, and off they go. And so there will be something catastrophic happen. It's just a question of when. So I don't want that to happen, but
a Russian roulette.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh my gosh. I want to give a shout out. So before, I didn't read David Knight's message, by the way. So David Knight said, super chat, the USPS is a failure. They can't do blockchain. I kind of agree with you. We'll see what happens there, David. Thank you so much. I got a super chat from Andre Amorim, GHQC. Thank you so much for your message. GHQC, is that the code of a crypto that I should know? GHQC, just Googling that right now. Government Communication Headquarters in the UK. You're going to have to explain what you mean by that.
What's happening?
Not quite sure what you mean, but I really, really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. And I got a message from Crypto Morpheus on the marquee, Brookwell and Davis live. Yes, we are. And so glad that all of you are here hanging with us as well. So I wanted to talk about one of these latest projects. It's similar to this YAM scheme. Meanwhile, so update on YAM, as you said, people are able to withdraw their money, but they've got YAM version 2, which is the idea that there's no governance on there. There's no rebasing on there, meaning that they're just the supply and all that. It's basically just moving money over there to get things audited and make sure everything's good. And then they're launching YAM version 3, which is going to be basically transferring all that over into the new YAM. Meanwhile, you've got spaghetti money, which is this new thing popped up. And as you said, these are completely unaudited. We don't know whether there are things built into the back end. This is from an anonymous team. We don't know who the team is. We haven't seen the code, the code hasn't been audited, and it raised $200 million in 12 hours. This stuff, I don't know, you guys have money to throw around. I'm really happy for you, but if this isn't money that you can just throw around, just be careful, because this is just this is a crazy, crazy ass world.
It really is.
Any final words on that, on what people going forward, interesting projects that you think are cool? As I said, I'm actually covering Compound on the show tomorrow with Paul Tway, CEO of Edge. We're going to be talking about it, pros and cons, etc. And also I'm going to be releasing my Compound interview with the CEO, where we talk about the tokenomics, we talk about incentive structures, all of that. That's going to be released just for members only. So if you guys wanted to become a member of MBTV and support the channel, you get interviews like that with the CEO of Compound. But we're going to dive into it on the show tomorrow. But I just want your thoughts, Lark, on what are some other interesting projects that do look kind of cool? You don't have to recommend them. I personally wouldn't recommend any of this DeFi stuff right now, because it seems like a giant gambling ring where people are having a lot of fun. Someone mentioned, actually, before we go into final thoughts, someone wrote this great tweet, which I feel the same way. Like, it's kind of an exciting time because DeFi is this idea that you can play with all these financial tools without going through all of the KYC and the ID verification. You can just kind of like have a go and have a play. I find it really exciting to see all these projects going off and see what's happening. Even when the community came together with Yam and really tried to get these bugs fixed, they failed. But it was this exciting momentum behind it because you're like, what's going to happen? This is crazy. I'm kind of enjoying it. Based is another DeFi project. You look at their Twitter, it's the scariest Twitter account I've ever seen. You guys need to check out their Twitter. I'll post a link in the video, but it's like these images they're posting. I'm just like, this seems like something out of like a synthwave sci-fi futuristic Blade Runner horror film. It's like it's scary stuff. And I think it's meant to be that because they're kind of selling themselves as this degen yield farming platform because it's kind of degen. It's like this rampant gambling thing, but it is kind of exciting on one side of things. I'm not putting any of my money into this, just in case anyone is wondering. Like, I'm not putting it into Yam or Spaghetti or any of this. It's not because I don't think people can make a lot of money. Maybe you can. It's irrelevant to me because I'm just not going to part with my hard-earned money that way. But like, just summarize all this for us. Give us your take and what people, like, you've already given people really good disclaimer on being careful. But like, does this world excite you? Does it make you scared?
Absolutely. It's very exciting. I think we're seeing an incredible amount of innovation right now, the kind of innovation that we haven't seen in a while in the cryptocurrency industry. And that's why we're seeing so many new projects being launched. People are kind of hopping on the bandwagon in terms of, wow, innovation's happening. Can I hop on that and make a lot of money too? And that's developers and investors both. But I think right now we're seeing decentralized finance in so many ways, delivering on the promises of blockchain technology. And I always find this is something that the Bitcoin maximalists really miss. I mean, Bitcoin is great at moving value from person A to person B, but because of a whole range of reasons, that's all Bitcoin does, right? It can be your gold savings account. You can move value from person A to person B, but that's it. There's nothing else going on Bitcoin. Whereas what we're seeing right now with decentralized finance, aside from all the insanity that's happening, please, everyone, protect your capital. I just have to underline how difficult it can be to recover from significant financial losses. So it takes 100% gain to recover from a 50% financial loss. So just imagine that when you're thinking about your portfolio, it takes a 300% gain to recover from a 75% financial loss. So when you're gambling on these coins, understand that you are risking incredible, not just your short-term finance, but your long-term abilities as an investor to be into, more reputable companies, right? So get your Bitcoin, get your Ethereum, whatever else it may be. But I think that there's just so many exciting things happening right now at decentralized finance. It's really easy to talk about the drama, but if you actually look at what's being delivered in terms of some of the real world things that are starting to be explored, it's incredibly exhilarating. I mean, just the ability for anyone, anywhere, without KYC, without any of that stuff, to be able to take a loan via Maker, that's game-changing beyond belief. When we look at anybody, anywhere can now have a dollar savings account. So you can use something like Compound. So if you have a mobile phone and you can get access to cryptocurrency, which most people in most countries can nowadays, which is absolutely game-changing. You can go and buy dollars and you can get 6, 7, 8, 10% a year on those dollar savings accounts. So that's really game-changing for a lot of people in a lot of places who lack access. We're actually talking about now banking the unbanked, but not giving them bank accounts, giving them decentralized finance accounts, giving them Ethereum accounts. We've seen some really big innovations. For example, I'll just name a couple of them here real quick for you. Maker, they have introduced invoices and music royalties as potential collateral for loans. Now, that is very big and important because what we see with Maker is that if you're a company, you have invoices and you need to get cash quick while you're waiting for that invoice to be paid, well, now you can actually tokenize that invoice, bring it to Maker, get cash for it. And so you're able to access that liquidity in a much quicker way. Same with music royalties, right? So you're getting the future potential income from that. Again, you can unlock liquidity a lot faster if you need it. Aave has just signed a deal that's going to let them now bring mortgages into the blockchain world, into the decentralized finance world. This is very early. These are pilot cases right now, but that is the exciting stuff that's going on. This is where we're moving. We're going to be bringing all real world value into decentralized finance. So even though there's a niche of whales and big accounts who can actually afford to pay a $30, $40 Ethereum gas fee to be able to put $50,000 or $100,000 into, yield farming yams or pasta or whatever the big thing of the day might be.
Dollars. I just
that it's insanity. That stuff is a very niche within a niche. But I look at the mainstream applications for decentralized finance, and it's incredibly exciting to see these real world assets starting to actually be brought in. Real estate's going to be absolutely massive in the crypto world, but we're going to see other things brought in as well. We've already seen a loan be taken out against actually, I think it was for potential. I think it might have been for this art piece, but it was definitely by this artist. So I can see my wall back here. These art pieces are by Josie Bellini, and
she's great. I've seen her at a conference doing the like augmented stuff in a way. It's really cool.
It's absolutely fabulous. And so we've actually seen somebody now take a loan versus their NFTs. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening, and I think the DeFi space it's just getting started. We're just starting to see some of the really exciting applications be brought through. Yes, as with almost anything, what were some of the earliest applications of Bitcoin? Gambling, right? What are some of the earliest applications for DeFi? Gambling. That's not going to be, we have teams that are very serious, very well funded, and they're building very useful, cool technology that's going to have a real world impact. And I think that's where my focus tends to be. It's although, it's fun to watch the insane gamblers pile hundreds of millions of dollars in unaudited codes.
It's like I'm living vicariously through. I'm sure it must be exhilarating, but I'm sure there's also an element of Schadenfreude where when it doesn't work out and you're like, oh, thank God, I'm not missing out. There's no FOMO. It ended up exactly how I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Up in flames.
And it's gone. It's gone.
And it's gone. Yeah. No, it's crazy. This whole world, it's exciting, it's dangerous. Be really careful out there. Do a lot of research, and in a lot of these cases, it's like another thing. I did an interview with someone. I won't mention in particular what it was, but I wanted to find a leader in a community for a particular coin, and so I put a call out and got lots of recommendations, and someone that everyone kept going to as being like a spokesperson or someone who knows about this. I scheduled an interview with them, and then they canceled the interview because they said that they actually don't understand it well enough to do a technical deep dive with me. And when that sort of stuff happens, it makes you realize that it doesn't matter how well researched you think you are, how deep you think you're diving. And you're like, no, I'm looking to the spokespeople, I'm learning all this stuff. A lot of the times, the spokespeople don't actually understand it themselves. So be really careful who you're following. It's a really tough situation to be. Give me 1 second there. I just want to go through and just give a thanks. I got a new subscriber on my channel. Just got to pull back here. So, Mr. Harry Lasagna, welcome to NBTV. You're a member. I'll give you access to my page. You can get all these exclusive interviews with all these CEOs and behind the scenes stuff. I am so delighted to have you join me.
Hi, Mr. Harry Lasagna.
Yeah, an NBTV super fan. Also a big fan of yours, apparently. Lark. He's sent us some nice messages about you. But
I know him well. He's a great guy.
He is indeed. He's been always a big supporter and really helpful person to have around. So I really appreciate you and excited to have you as part of the MBTV membership club gang, whatever we would call ourselves. I don't know. Bitcoin Ben, he sent a super chat. Thank you so much, Bitcoin Ben. He asked the questions: do you think the USPS blockchain will be run on a private government blockchain or run on a public blockchain, maybe cross-chain capable? Yeah, I mean, we mentioned this before, Ben. I'm not sure what they have in mind, but if they do it on this private blockchain, I think it's going to be useless. I think it's just going to be an expensive database. Lark, you mentioned the same thing, right?
Yep.
I think that
public chain or go home.
And I don't think they're going to do a public chain. I think that they are going to. I don't think they're going to do anything. But I just don't foresee the government ever saying, yes, let's not keep control of this. Let's distribute the power among the masses. Like, they've never done this in the history of any policy they've ever implemented. Why is the USPS suddenly going to do this? I mean, USPS has tried to make like private competitive mail servicing companies go out of business. Like, they try their darndest to keep a monopoly. There's no way, I think, that they're going to want to distribute power. But I would love your thoughts, Ben, and thank you so much for the super chat. So, all right, like, this kind of sums up everything that's going on in the space at the moment. And in terms of DeFi, there's so much more we could dive into. Like, what are some resources that you would recommend for people learning more? Have you done any videos on your channel that kind of do a deeper dive into this that people could go to, or are there other things that you would recommend?
I mean, it's such a big topic. It's hard to say where to go to get any particular kind of thing. But I know that there's a lot of really, really great resources. I would recommend the Bankless podcast. Those guys are doing a lot of great stuff looking into DeFi and looking at all the latest trends, talking about some of the yields you can get, but also looking at the risks and all this stuff. So definitely go check them out. I think it's probably one of the better resources for finding legit information on this topic. Obviously, a lot of great stuff on YouTube. People have done tutorials on how to use Uniswap and all that stuff. But yeah, I think if you're looking for the bigger picture, I would definitely check them out.
Absolutely. It's there's a lot to go through. I did get another Cointree super chat as well. I presume it's from you, Anthony, because you mentioned in the chat whether or not I'd received it. So yes, I have, but it's from an anonymous account. Says, I believe more and more DeFi is decorrelated from other markets. I think it's just its own big gambling like vortex. I agree. It's probably decoupled from other markets. People just really enjoy playing, it seems. Like, that's something that we've really learned in crypto. They love playing. So I think you're absolutely right. Thank you so much for the super chat there.
I just want to say real quick too, you can see there's about a move recently towards more meme-ified DeFi projects. They're using a lot of, like yam farming had a lot of Farmville stuff kind of like on their web page. The base is, like you said, it's kind of cyberpunk stuff. So they're making it more gamey. They're making it more fun and retro and something that's going to appeal to, I don't know, millennials or whatever. And guys, it's your money. It's money. Just because it looks fancy, it's a freaking casino. Be careful.
No, it's like, it's so funny though, looking on these pages, like they do try to make it this like, they're using emojis for all of this new like food tokens that have come out, like the ham and the yam and the shrimp. They're just using emojis as their icon. Like, it's very much this meme culture where they're taking things and then iterating on it. And I kind of enjoy that culture. Like, I've always loved meme culture, and I love the internet for that reason. Like, it's hilarious. I'm entertained on a daily basis. I completely concur with everything Lark said, though. This is your money. Don't get swept up. It may be fun in a moment, but tomorrow you're going to have to buy your groceries and you'll be like, oh, shit, I lost my money. It would be nice to eat today. So, make some smarter choices. Make sure that you're keeping up with this. Oh, I actually got another Cointree. Guys, you were using Cointree and I'm so thrilled. Like, I have no idea how thrilled I am. Litecoin from Anonymous. Good job on bringing back the live streams. Good all-star cast today. Highly appreciated doing Cointree because I can. Thanks again. Well, I really appreciate that. That's from Exciting World 32. You can also check out his YouTube channel, Exciting World Cryptos. He probably has the best backgrounds in all of crypto because he's just in beautiful Canadian territory surrounded by like snow-capped places and just ice lakes, and it's beautiful. Amazing. Yeah, so go check out his stuff as well. But everyone, let's call that a day. I have had so much fun chatting with you guys. Lark, I have had so much fun chatting with you. We need to get you back on the show because you're a blast and a wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure everyone in the chat really appreciates you being here.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, Mr. Harry Lasagna, new MBTV member. I'll be sending you an email in a little bit with the login details for the members only page. All the people who sent super chats and Cointree messages, love you guys. Everyone who's hanging out, love you all. Join tomorrow. I chat with Paul Pui. We're talking about Compound, which is another interest earning crypto. We're also going to be talking about Digibyte tomorrow. Chat to you then, and go and have a wonderful rest of your day. I love all of you. Thank you, Crypto. Oh, Bitcoin Ben. God, I have to read it. He just sent a super chat. That's like stop psyching me out, guys. I ended the show. Bitcoin Ben. Do these DeFi projects just borrow the credibility and add to support the DeFi project? So it's a fancy way to ICO by borrowing capital instead of selling direct. What's your take on that, Lark?
To an extent, yeah. It's they're able to get capital without doing very much, especially guys who are just copying and pasting code. It's the equivalent of the new ICO boom. So
yeah, I completely agree.
And in the same way, there's going to be a lot of exit scams. So
yeah, I completely agree. And as you said before, you're warning people, this hasn't been audited. People could have inbuilt these bugs where they could just walk away with this money. So be really careful out there. Bitcoin Ben, thank you so much for your super chat. For realsies though, we're heading off. I love you all.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Chat to you soon.